Have you ever seen the series Fireball? No? Story of my life. Today we're going to review Figma number 38, which is Drossel from Fireball. Fireball, to say the least, was an interesting series. It's a weird little cute series about robots. The robots have their own personalities, they interact with one another, and the episodes are generally pretty short. It's actually pretty funny if you watch it, it's worth a chuckle, and it's definitely interesting to say the least. It's a bit old now, but Drossel here has always been a design that appealed to me. So I decided to go into AmiAmi's used section and pick her up used. Now, the box looks to be in great condition, and the figure also looks almost new inside, so let's start to break these seals because the seals are indeed intact, and let's see what's in there. The front of the box is of course a window display, which shows the figure and her accessories in all their glory, and you can see of course there is a Disney logo right there on the front. Drossel is written on the front, which is of course her name, and turned to the side we get to see the figure posing. The top actually shows the same pose. The other side of the box, of course, just has the Figma logo, the name, and even some little vines here, which is a nice touch. Finally, on the back, we get to see her posed in a couple different shots, as well as attached with some of her different accessories. But let's not waste any time. And interestingly, there is the actual scene that you see a lot in the Fireball series of the big castle type thing that they live in. It kind of looks like the Shinra building to me. And there's everything in the plastic, which actually looks pretty good. It's all very cleanly displayed, and the figure itself doesn't look too used, so let's get further in. And here's the figure itself, and to be honest, I'm not sure if this is used. Similar with Yotsuba, the seals were still intact, and everything was still in the plastic when I opened it up. I thought I saw some scratches on the figure, but I was mistaken actually, because once I looked at it, it was like a little tiny piece of hair or something. Either way, this thing is in great condition, and I'm really surprised. The joints are all incredibly tight, so I think I may have gotten another new used figure. I'm happy for that. Right out of the packaging, I've got to say, this figure is incredibly striking. The white and black goes so great, that monochrome design is gorgeous, and those glowing blue eyes almost look as if they're illuminated, but it's just a nice effect from that metallic behind the plastic there. This is truly a beautiful figure. I'm actually really liking this already. There's so much here to love. It's so smooth, so sleek, and designed so well, and the character already was rather cute. Now, if I'm not mistaken, these Figmas were kind of hard to come by for a little while because it was during the heyday of when people would make fake Figmas of basically everything that was coming out. The line used to seem a little bit more rare. It was kind of harder to get Figmas in America for a while, of course, because the importing system was just nowhere near as good as it is now. So a lot of people were complaining about getting fake Drossels online, and I'm sure that they're probably still floating around out there. But this one is obviously the real deal. But let's go over posability. The one thing that I will say right off the bat is that her pigtails are on little ball joints, which is nice and all, but unfortunately they're incredibly loose. They come out incredibly easily. This one was actually stuck inside of the box when I took her out, so they come off pretty easily. But just as easily as they come off, they go back on rather easily as well. And of course, since both of them are on ball joints, they can be swiveled around and rotated as you like, but of course you'll want to be careful to not rip them out of her head. And her head is on a hinged peg joint, so it can go up and down, and of course it can swivel side to side and roll like you need it to. The shoulder seems to be a point of contention because that ball joint can evidently get a little bit loose. Mine seems to be fine because it's so fresh out of the packaging. And of course with the ball joint you can get a swivel up and down, you can get your side to side there, and it can roll the way that you need it to. Her elbow is another hinged peg joint, which of course can go in and out, and it can be swiveled, though it is a bit tight right out of the bat. Her hands are of course on a similar hinged peg joint, which can go up and down, and of course be spun the way you need to. Her waist is on a very responsive ball joint. There's a little ball inside of her abdomen here, and of course it connects off of this middle larger ball, which isn't actually movable, but the ball in her chest does allow her to move rather easily. And of course that can be swiveled side to side, rolled around, up and down, side to side, all that good stuff. You can move her pretty freely. Now with that said, the bottom portion in her skirt is affixed to that middle piece, so there is not a separate joint inside of there which allows her bottom half to move freely, just her top half. But she gets a great range of motion. You can get her to move her hips the way that you need to, and those hips do not lie. The legs, of course, are also on ball joints, which can go up and down, and they can be swiveled and rotated. Her knee is additionally on a hinge, which can go in and out. It can be swiveled as well at the actual leg, not at the knee, so be careful there. And her foot is actually on another very strange large hinge joint, which can be rotated around and up and down. You do what you need to do. Honestly, she's great. Right out of the packaging, she's incredibly responsive, very clean, very easy to move around, which is what I love about the Figma line. These things are perfect. Even from the start, this is number 38 in the line, and it's already amazing. Now, as a Figma, of course, she comes with a plethora of accessories, of which many are the hands that actually come on this rack here. And this is a wonderful touch. I've always loved the hand rack from Figma because it just helps keep everything organized. She does have two hands that are pointing, which seem to be pretty much the same. Of course, one for one arm and one for the other. And then these other two that are a mismatch seem to be of a similar style. They're both open, but this one is more stylized in the way the fingers are rolled, so that's always nice. Additionally, she comes with a pair of fists, and finally a pair of gripping hands, which do have an open socket so that she can hold something. Additionally, she comes with this book, which is a pretty nice touch. I don't remember the full name of it. It says Anthropology, 14? Gespräch mit der Menschheit? Gespräch mit der Menschheit? I don't know what that means, but of course the Japanese are obsessed with putting German in their series. There's plenty of little text on here, which is actually a really nice touch. If you focus there, you can see that it's not just lines. It actually looks almost like it does read something. I mean, even super close up, I can almost not decipher whether or not it's just gibberish or not. It almost looks like it could say something in German, possibly, but of course, it's probably just scribble. She additionally comes with this combat visor, which is rather nice. This is similarly decorated with the vines that are on her packaging, which is really a nice touch, as well as some of the semi-flexible plastic. It's all really good looking, and it actually just kind of sockets onto her head. And finally, there's this piece here, which is apparently from like only one scene of the whole series. I haven't watched all of Fireball, but I am interested to see the rest of it, especially after opening this figure finally. This is really nice though. The adornments look wonderful. All of this is actually really well put on. If you see here, of course, there's even logos in there, and it all just looks really clean. It's just the kind of level of quality that you expect from Figma. And funny enough, you can actually unplug these. And once you do that, you can actually plug this little guy on here, which will act like a sort of wing on that headpiece. And finally, like all Figma, she comes with a stand as well, in addition to the baggie that you can put all of her accessories in, which is a feature I've always loved about the Figmas. All in all, I think that Drossel is a wonderful figure and a great addition to the Figma line. Of course, she was one of the earlier Figma at 38, so it just goes to show you that even long ago when they first started making these things, they were investing a lot of care into the design. This can be seen through the accessories and even through the painting on the figure itself. There's a little bit of wording on the back of one of her pigtails, which ultimately is just tiny little details that I think add up to making a beautiful package here. Drossel is a wonderful figure, and I'm very happy to have purchased her. Even if you don't know what she's from, she's actually just a really attractive design for a character. This certainly intrigues me in watching the rest of Fireball, and then of course following it up with Fireball Charming so that I can get the later Drossel figure as well. The only thing I would say is that some of her posability is limited. Her head is hard to turn side to side, and ultimately her hands are hard to move around due to the limitations of the wrist. But ultimately, it doesn't really get in the way that much. She's still rather easily posable, and the figure just looks great in any way that you put it almost. With all that said, I would give this figure a solid 8 out of 10. I could do with a little bit more accessory, maybe a little bit better posability out of certain joints, but I still think this is overall a wonderful package. The design is what really gets most of the points here, and the presentation is almost perfect. But what do you think? Why don't you give me a like on this video if you did indeed like this video or this figure? Have you ever seen Fireball or not? Why don't you comment below and tell me what your favorite scene was, or even if you've just seen it. If you haven't subscribed yet, please make sure to do so. It does help the channel out, and I'm going to link a video that I would love for you to click as well, because that helps the channel even more. Thanks again so much for watching. I'll see you when I get back from Japan, and keep on collecting.